Military warships represent the pinnacle of human engineering, symbols of power, strength, and determination. They're built for battle, designed to defend and attack. But throughout naval history, there's one battle that repeats itself over and over again. Not against enemy fleets flying hostile flags, but against the ocean itself. Against nature, a force that simply cannot be defeated. And even America's most advanced and powerful warships have found themselves caught in storms where survival hung by a thread. Picture this. It's late 1944, and the U.S. Third Fleet is operating in the Western Philippine Sea, east of Luzon Island. These ships had just finished a series of devastating air raids against Japanese positions, supporting the invasion of the Philippines. They were heading to a refueling rendezvous point in the Philippine Sea when nature struck with terrifying force. Typhoon Cobra hit without warning. Wind speeds exceeded 100 knots. That's over 115 miles per hour. Waves towered 65 feet high. Massive warships rolled up to 70 degrees. Some nearly capsized completely. 3 destroyers, the USS Hull, USS Monaghan, and USS Spence, were lost to the storm. All 3 had been attempting to refuel in these horrific conditions when they lost control. More than 790 sailors perished in the churning waters. Aircraft carriers like the USS Monterey and USS Cowpens suffered severe damage. Planes that were supposedly secured to the deck broke free and smashed around like toys. Sailors were swept overboard by mountainous waves. This wasn't combat, this was catastrophe. The tragedy led the U.S. Navy to develop modern storm warning systems and implement new standards for weather preparedness. Fast forward to February 2008, the massive aircraft carrier USS Kitty Hawk was returning to its home base in Yokosuka, Japan, after multinational naval exercises near the Philippines. Weather forecasts warned of possible rough seas, but nobody expected what was coming. The typhoon struck suddenly. Winds reached 90 knots, waves climbed to 50 feet. Now the Kitty Hawk isn't small. We're talking about a 1,060-foot giant displacing 83,000 tons. But even this maritime colossus was tossed around like a bath toy. Aircraft on deck were damaged, some partially torn from their moorings. Every 15 seconds, massive waves crashed over the flight deck. All deck operations ceased immediately. One sailor was injured. For more than 14 hours, the crew battled to secure equipment while their ship rode out nature's assault. Even the typically calm Mediterranean can turn deadly. In January 1956, the British aircraft carrier HMS Albion was conducting training exercises when a vicious winter storm struck between Sicily and Crete. Winds howled at 80 knots, nearly 100 miles per hour. But here's what made the storm particularly terrifying. The temperature dropped to near freezing. Sea spray, launching 100 feet into the air, instantly froze on contact with the ship. Within hours, the flight deck was coated in several inches of solid ice. This wasn't just uncomfortable. Ice accumulation shifts a ship's center of gravity and dramatically increases the risk of capsizing. The crew worked frantically to break up ice formations while massive waves pounded the hull every 10 to 15 seconds. Flight operations stopped completely. Navigation equipment was smashed by the relentless bombardment of frozen seawater. The ship's hull groaned and creaked under the pressure. Despite not being in combat, the damage was comparable to a military attack. Bent flight deck, flooded compartments, and several injured sailors. Sometimes storms create more than just rough seas. In May 2008, the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS George Washington was crossing the Pacific, heading to its new home base in Japan, when it encountered a tropical storm south of the Mariana Islands. The violent motion and vibration caused an oil leak in the engine room. Combined with overheating equipment, cables and machinery caught fire. Flames engulfed 2 technical areas. More than 30 sailors suffered from smoke inhalation and burns. The ship lost partial electrical power, and there was real danger the fire could spread throughout the vessel. Only quick action by the crew contained the blaze. The mission was scrapped. The carrier had to return to San Diego for extensive repairs, delaying its deployment by months. In early 2011, the USS Carl Vinson Strike Group was crossing the Pacific when they encountered a cyclone that quickly intensified into a full storm. Winds reached 50 knots. Waves climbed to 23 feet. The destroyer, USS Dewey, escorting the carrier, was caught in the worst of it. At one point, the Dewey hit a massive wave head-on. The entire front section of the 500-foot warship disappeared underwater for several seconds. Imagine a destroyer, a ship weighing thousands of tons, completely swallowed by a single wave. That moment was captured in a photograph that perfectly illustrates just how small even our mightiest warships become when nature unleashes its full power. Aircraft carriers are floating fortresses, but their design makes them vulnerable in extreme weather. That massive flat flight deck acts like a giant sail, catching wind from every direction. The tall superstructure creates even more wind resistance. The high center of gravity means these ships lose stability quickly in rough seas. Even nuclear-powered giants can roll 20 degrees or more, which is already considered dangerous. During storms, carriers must constantly adjust course to keep their bow pointed into the waves. All aircraft are moved to hangars, elevators are locked down, and everything on deck is secured. One mistake can mean lost equipment or lost lives. When storms hit, the aircraft carrier becomes the center of the formation. Destroyers, frigates, and supply ships maneuver around it in carefully coordinated patterns. One wrong move and ships can collide. Radio communications never stop. Courses and speeds are checked every minute. Weather teams monitor conditions around the clock. Crews work without sleep, every person at their station. This isn't a drill. This is a fight for survival against an enemy that uses no weapons except the raw power of wind and water. Military warships represent incredible feats of engineering and human ingenuity, but they're not invincible. The ocean remains their greatest adversary, not because it fires missiles or launches attacks, but because it simply raises a wave. And every sailor knows that no battle is more terrifying than the one fought in the heart of a storm. It's a lesson in humility and a reminder that humans and their ships are merely guests on the water. The ocean doesn't negotiate, doesn't retreat, and never surrenders. In the end, we can only hope to survive its fury and live to sail another day.